first of all, giving you our thanks for your time. Now you are right here in FICOD, and you've already given us a very great lecture on, I must say, on e-commerce and how the Alibaba Group became a giant from the inside perspective. But we have got some questions for you on the future also.
Okay.
So, as an expert in e-commerce, so the first one, some questions are for completing a bit the information you gave us in the lecture, because you've told about the miracle of Alibaba.
Right.
But we know that for any miracle, money is necessary.
Right.
So I guess that Alibaba had very good investors
Right.
from the very beginning. So can you tell us about that history? Yes, how?
So in some ways Alibaba was lucky because it raised $25 million from Goldman Sachs and SoftBank right before the internet bubble burst back in 2000. And this was great timing because actually then we had the savings to survive once the internet bubble burst and the winter came. But an important thing, when I joined the company, that was right when the internet bubble had burst, and we were spending money like crazy. I mean, we weren't acting like responsible entrepreneurs because everyone at that time was spending money too much. But the best thing that happened to us was that the market made some discipline. We realized we couldn't go back to raise more money. We had to get serious about building a business for the long term. And so we did something called zero budget marketing, where we cut the marketing down to zero and we just relied on word of mouth. And then we cut our costs and went back to China and had all of our operations really based out of China, where we were saving costs. And so, yes, we were lucky to raise that early $25 million to survive. But to survive for the really long term, it came down to just being responsible about controlling the costs in the company, even though we almost went out of business. But I'll say one of the best things was that Jack Ma and Masayoshi's son, who is the head of SoftBank, one of Alibaba's biggest investor, they both had a really long-term patient view. So an entrepreneur needs to think about who's giving them the money, not just how much money it is. Because we were lucky that SoftBank had a long-term view. They allowed us to run our website for free, to grow as big as we could. And then after several years, we started to make money finally. That was too long, but you just edit out what you don't need.
Yeah, thank you. That was an information that I would have thanked downstairs, but I know that is not for investors, the conference, or for people from financial department. So I can understand, but our readers are management people, so they are also financial people. Right. Inside.
And you can, by the way, you can use any video from my film you want to put into your...
Thank you. Okay. Thanks a lot. We will do it.
Okay.
Of course. The second question is, you've told about building a human website,
right,
instead of a very cold website like Amazon it is. So you've told about the chat inside the website. And that's a point I want to explore with you. For example, you know, as an expert in e-commerce, that big data are very important for these companies, and they must extract their conclusions from the data. So how was Alibaba sourcing their data, their big data? How they sourced the data and how they manage, because there are companies that are more based on buy and sell data, and even they look for the behavior of the buyers inside the websites. But there are also other companies that they are sourcing their data from chats and also social networks. So if there's a difference, I thank you if you can explain it to our readers.
Sure, well, I'll explain. Actually, the first 5 years I was at Alibaba, we didn't look at data almost at all. I mean, we were moving so quickly. So much of it was based on intuition. We only looked at the main 5 or 10 metrics, like how much website traffic there was, how much transactions were going. We didn't really take advantage of it. And we actually hired a consultant who had worked at Amazon. He was their main chief scientist. He came and consulted to us about very high-level, sophisticated things, but actually we weren't ready for it yet. So in the early days of a startup, at least in our case, we didn't do enough focusing on data because we were more focused on action and less on analysis. But now if you look at Alibaba, they have stated and they're focusing a lot of attention, a lot of resources on big data. And the unique thing is that because Alibaba was born in an emerging market, they're the only ones that have this data. They cannot go out and source the data from other people because people don't have the data. They don't have credit data about small businesses or consumers. They don't have, other businesses don't have that much information about consumer preferences because Alibaba has created this database that didn't exist before. So my guess is now, without knowing what they're really doing, my guess is that they have so much data internally, they don't need to go out and source it from other people. People come, they start their shopping on Alibaba and Taobao, and based on the histories within that ecosystem, they can recommend different things. So one of the things I know Alibaba does, they like to keep the data to themselves. And so brands who go and sell their products on Tmall are always wanting to get more data than they're getting. But Alibaba, maybe wisely for their strategy, has held on to the data themselves, so they know more about the customer often than the brands will know about the customer.
Mm-hmm. You told about how did you build the website experience, but how about the mobile and multi screen experience?
Right. Well,
how did you did?
Yeah, the interesting thing, I left Alibaba 2008. At that time, mobile wasn't that big yet. Smartphones were still not very popular. So Alibaba was really born on the computer, really. And then a lot of analysts were kind of questioning, can they move to mobile quickly enough, given that people are accessing the internet now from smartphones. And if you see their recent Singles Day, they now had something like more than 70% of their sales on this big Singles Day promotion were done through the mobile app. So they've moved online. The interesting development you're seeing now, like in countries like India, companies are skipping altogether the website phase. Some services, if you want to shop online in India, some things you can only do on an app on a smartphone. And so it's actually becoming so important that such a small amount of the purchases are done on a computer. So now actually things are leapfrogging straight to mobile in other markets. So China leapfrogged to the computer and the internet instead of going through retail development. But in places like India or Africa, everything is leapfrogging straight to the mobile phone.
Mm-hmm. Now some questions about the future of e-commerce. For example, how do you see as an opportunity the new technologies like virtual testers and things like that incorporated into the...
What's a virtual tester?
Yeah.
What's that?
For example, one person choose a T-shirt. This person want to know how he or she would look like with the T-shirt,
Right.
put on, and they can use an app in order to watch themselves with the T-shirts on.
Yeah.
So how do you see in the future this kind of technologies brought inside the e-commerce ecosystem?
Yeah, these are really critically important. I think these new technologies, what you're going to see actually, they're going to be taking hold in China before they take hold in other countries. Because in China, people don't go to the physical stores as much. And the physical stores are not as important in retail. And so that's why I think if you want to understand the last 20 years of e-commerce, study eBay and Amazon. And in those websites, you really just have one product up there. It's just product focused. But the best way to understand where things are headed is to look to China, what the companies are doing, because I think they're really embracing these new technologies. Because the goal is to not only match the offline experience, but exceed the offline experience online. And a lot of brands are afraid to sell online. They think it'll hurt their brand. But one of the things I talked about in the conference here, they can actually build their brand much stronger through a lot of these new tools and testing software. So I think it will be critically important. And one of the things Alibaba is doing with their ecosystem, they allow outside app developers to build apps that can be plugged into the ecosystem. So if I want to sell on Tmall, I can go buy an app and use different apps to create my online store by the apps that were developed by third-party developers.
Sort of services brought into the system for brands.
Services brought into the system, and then the service companies have ways to monetize that much more easily. In the past, you used to have to go to a big retailer and try to sell them your thing. Now, it's very easy. You can buy the app in the software store and just start using it right away.
Some questions about new technologies in delivery systems. I've got some news about some tests by Alibaba on drones to deliver their packages, and also I've got some information, perhaps you not, because this is a very Spanish company, Barrabés.com. So they have a software that allows the people allows the company, their e-store, to sort between the parcel delivery companies, the delivery that is best price in each moment. They can combine and they can match this to bring another advantage to the client, is a lower price.
Okay.
So,
right.
How do you see the future of drones, and how do you see the future of these kind of softwares?
I'm glad you asked. I think drones are a great PR plan for Amazon. When they started talking about drones, suddenly everyone was talking about drones, and Amazon looked very cutting edge. Realistically, I think actually other things will happen first. Like you'll see, for example, Uber is offering, in countries where Uber is allowed, they offer a delivery service where if you want something from a store, someone will come and pick it up and bring it to you. Now, an interesting thing, in China, I don't think drones make sense at all. Because in China, if you want to have something delivered, there are so many people moving from the countryside to the big cities that it's not expensive to have someone deliver something. It might cost $1 or $2 to have someone take a package across town. You don't need to invest in a drone because the labor price is so low. And this is an opportunity for people when they first come to the city. So drones are nice. It creates great PR. I think that drones will be used much, much later down the road, and only in those countries where the cost of delivery is so expensive, maybe in a Switzerland or something. You don't need a drone in China or India right now.
And for remote zones, for example, people that are in inner Mongolia, for example, or in inner Tibet, in the highlands, and they can't have a very, very good delivery system. Is there any chance for drones there?
I think those places even less drone, because a drone can only cover short distances and it can't go long distances. I think what you're seeing is that the best thing these e-commerce companies can do is encourage the logistics providers to communicate with each other, to expand the coverage to these different areas. So what you see now is that the logistics is a bottleneck for a lot of e-commerce companies. It's easy to sell something online, but actually delivering it requires logistics system, and logistics systems take longer to build up. So all these logistics systems are playing catch up. In India, that's the biggest problem. A lot of people in India don't even have an address. So how are you going to deliver? Because a lot of times the instruction is turn left at the mango tree and stop at the chimney and you will see it. So the most important thing is getting the traditional coverage out there, finding ways of linking entrepreneurs to deliver. And I think that'll come before drones. And I'm sorry, all you drone people out there, it's not coming anytime soon.
That's your opinion, and it's good.
That's my opinion.
It's
yeah.
good. It's good. And now on the barrabes.com software that we've talked before, which is your opinion?
Which software though?
Yes, this
okay.
software allows the e-commerce company to choose the delivery best priced in each moment.
Okay.
So they can bring a very, 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 very huge price advantage
Okay.
for
I'll comment,
the
but
client.
you may not be satisfied because I don't know that much about it. But I think these softwares that are helping basically squeeze more efficiency out of the delivery system by allowing more price flexibility depending on demand and capacity. This is all incredibly important, and that's what logistics companies need to do, because the logistics company, beyond providing good service, the main thing they need to do is squeeze out efficiency. But what you're seeing is, in the more developed the country, the more important that is, because there's not as much efficiency or inefficiency out there. You need to squeeze it out. In countries like India or China, it's more about just getting someone to take it out there, and having that last second efficiency price isn't as important. But I think these types of technologies are going to play a more and more important role, because as e-commerce continues to boom, you're going to need to find more technical ways of making the pricing more efficient.
Mm-hmm. Do you see El Corte Inglés selling on Alibaba for Chinese people?
First, I don't know if El Corte Inglés is, but I think they should be. What you see is a lot of retailers have set up shop on Alibaba's website. Even Amazon.com in China has set up a shop on Tmall. And the reason is, sellers, it doesn't matter if you're a brand or a retailer, the first thing you need to do is go where the buyers are. And so I think a way for, let's say, a Spanish retailer like El Corte Inglés, if they're not doing it, first begin by creating a flagship store like a lot of other retailers have on Alibaba or in Jingdong, their competitor. And then, sure, once you learn the market and you find out what products really appeal to the local customers, then you can slowly branch out and create your own store. But that's a great way to get the initial traffic, because when people start shopping for products in China, they don't go to a Google or a Baidu, the local search. They start their product search on Taobao or Tmall.
So it's a big point for any retailer to start off in China.
Yeah, it's more challenging for retailers because they're a middleman, but I think that's a good way to get traffic to get off the ground.
And just the last question, your opinion about the future. You are outside Alibaba now, but I'm sure that you've got a lot of information about what the investments of the company and what they are doing now. For example, they have invested in a company creating content, digital content, right, and things like that. Also, they have a bank for right, startups, and they are bringing it outside China also, and things like that. How do you see the future of Alibaba? Just an e-commerce company, or actually, something bigger even?
So until now, Alibaba has mostly been an e-commerce conglomerate, mostly focusing on connecting buyers and sellers. But because they have this huge database and all these relationships with customers, they're branching into new frontiers. The two big ones I see them branching into are finance, banking, financial service, that being one, the finance sector. Banking is so inefficient in China that it's a really great opportunity for internet companies to move into that as it deregulates. Then the second one is media. And so you can see they're very intent on building a media empire. And the reason it makes sense in China even more than, let's say, Amazon doing media, China, the media has always been state-controlled, and so it's not very good content because it's not very market-driven. But now people watch video online more than they watch it on their television. So Alibaba's in a great position to build a media empire, and this media empire can actually connect to their e-commerce operations to drive the sales of certain products that maybe appear in the content on their television shows.
So thanks very much for your time, and I hope this is not the last time you talk for our readers. Thanks a lot.
Great. Thank you for having me.